Welcome to Ahmed's World Supernatural. In this episode, we explore the legend of the Afanc, a fearsome creature that roamed the waters of Wales. Once upon a time, in the enchanting land of Wales, whispers of a fearsome creature known as the Afanc resounded through the valleys. This formidable monster dwelled in rivers, lakes, and pools, instilling both awe and terror among the people. When the Afanc grew wrathful, the waters would surge, flooding the surrounding lands and causing chaos. The Afanc was no ordinary creature. Its form varied in the tales told, adding to the enigma that veiled its existence. Some versions depicted it as a crocodile-like beast, while others described it as a dwarf or demon. However, in the legend that unfolded in Snowdonia, Betws-y-Coed, and along the River Conwy, the Afanc took the shape of a colossal, beaver-like creature. Legends and myths about the Afanc abounded, each offering its own unique portrayal. The accounts of its physical appearance differed from story to story, making it challenging to ascertain the true nature of the creature. As with many ancient legends, their authenticity has faded into the mists of time, leaving behind tales that are difficult to verify. Yet, the places mentioned in these legends still exist today, allowing us to visit and imagine the world in which the Afanc once roamed. In bygone years, the people who resided along the banks of the River Conwy suffered greatly from the frequent flooding caused by the river. These floods ravaged their crops, drowned their livestock, and destroyed their homes. The people knew that the floods were not the result of heavy rainfall or other natural causes. They understood that the floods were caused by a monster called the Afanc, who resided in a pool within the River Conwy known as Llyn-yr-Afanc, meaning the beaver pool in Welsh. For unknown reasons, the Afanc grew increasingly furious, causing the river to flood more frequently and inflicting great harm upon the people who lived along its banks. The people grew desperate. Every time they recovered from one flood, the Afanc would unleash its anger anew, causing another. They had attempted to kill it many times, using various methods, but its skin was so impenetrable that no spear, sword, or arrow could harm it. The people had reached the end of their tether, contemplating the prospect of abandoning their homes and farms to seek refuge on higher ground, where the floodwaters could not reach them. However, they cherished the fertile and prosperous lands along the River Conwy and were reluctant to leave their homes and livelihoods behind. Thus, a gathering of the wise men was convened in a village called Betws-y-Coed, located approximately 1 mile north of the Afanc's lair. They pooled their wisdom and devised a daring plan. Realizing that forceful methods had failed to kill or drive away the Afanc, they decided to employ subterfuge to rid themselves of the creature. Their plan involved enticing or luring the Afanc out of its pool and transporting it to a new lake situated high in the mountains, far away from their homes and beyond the Afanc's ability to escape. Once there, it would cease causing floods and trouble. The wise men immediately set out in search of a suitable location for the Afanc's new abode. They identified a lake beneath the summit of Llyn-yr-Afanc, the highest mountain in Wales, known in English as Mount Snowdon. They deemed it an ideal place for the Afanc's new home. It was a considerable distance from their dwellings, and the lake's steep and sheer sides would prevent the Afanc from escaping. The wise men commissioned the finest blacksmith in Wales to forge the strongest chains ever made, hoping that they would securely bind the Afanc. Additionally, they enlisted the aid of the renowned Welsh hero, Hu Gadarn, who possessed 2 mighty long-horned oxen. The wise men believed that if anyone could move the Afanc, it was Hu Gadarn and his powerful oxen, the largest and strongest in all of Wales. The best blacksmith in Wales crafted the formidable chains and delivered them to the wise men in Betws-y-Coed. Hu Gadarn brought his majestic oxen to the village, ready to undertake the daunting task at hand. With all the necessary components in place, or so they thought, the wise men realized there was a flaw in their otherwise ingenious plan. Before they could secure the Afanc with chains and connect them to the oxen, they needed to entice the monster out of the water. One of the wise men recalled a tale he had heard long ago from a wise elder. It was said that Afancs, like certain other water monsters, had a fondness for beautiful maidens, and the Afanc of the River Conwy was particularly captivated by their allure. However, the question remained, would any of the local girls be brave or foolhardy enough to volunteer for such a perilous task? But they had to try, so they asked many beautiful maidens to volunteer, but no would do so. Luckily, there was one very brave and beautiful maiden who was the daughter of a local farmer who eventually volunteered. The wise men and all the men who lived along the River Conwy hid in the trees and bushes with the chains and the oxen ready as the maiden approached the Afanc's pool. She stood on the bank and softly called to him. The waters of the pool bubbled and churned as slowly the Afanc raised its huge monstrous head out of the water. Although the girl was understandably frightened, she very courageously stood her ground and began singing a beautiful, gentle Welsh lullaby very, very softly. Slowly the monster moved through the water until it was close enough for the girl to look into its great, green eyes. Although she was very frightened, the girl kept singing sweetly and slowly backed off. As she did so, the Afanc slowly followed her, dragging its monstrous body out of the pool and swaying slowly from side to side. Bravely the girl kept singing, and so sweet was her voice the Afanc slowly closed its eyes and fell asleep at her feet. At the girl's sign, the men crept up to the sleeping monster and began securing the chains around it and harnessing them to the mighty oxen. Suddenly the Afanc awoke from slumber and realized it had been tricked. Roaring and snorting with rage, the beast tried to escape, sliding quickly back into the water, but it was too late. The men had secured the chains around it and harnessed them to the oxen. The mighty oxen and all the men began pulling on the chains, and very, very slowly the Afanc was pulled inch by inch out of the water. It took all the strength of the oxen and men to pull the Afanc right out of the water and onto the bank. The wise men called for reinforcements of men from further afield to help. It took the combined strength of all the men and Hu Gadarn's mighty oxen to drag the struggling Afanc up the Llyn Valley and then northwest, to its new home of Llyn Glaslyn, which means Lake of the Blue Spring in English. The oxen and men struggled to pull the Afanc up one mountain, and one of the oxen pulled so hard one of its eyes popped out. From the poor beast's tears a new lake was formed called Pwll-Llyn-yr-Afanc in Welsh, which means Pool of the Ox's Eye in English. The men and the oxen continued their struggle, finally pulling the Afanc up Mount Snowdon until they reached Llyn Glaslyn, just below the summit. Releasing the chains, the Afanc shook and roared and leaped into the deep water of its new home. The men gave a loud cheer and immediately began congratulating themselves on the successful completion of their task. They began boasting and bragging of the part they played in it. Each claimed it was their mighty pull that caused the Afanc to be dragged from the water, and they began arguing and fighting amongst themselves. The wise men shook their heads in despair at the foolishness of the men. They knew that it was only the combined strength of the men and the oxen working together in unison that defeated the monster. As for the Afanc, it is said it remains to this day in the Lake of the Blue Spring, trapped by the steep rocky banks for all time, but doing no harm to anyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe.